This is on. Call to order the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District meeting March 21st, 2022 at 5:15. We do the roll call. Commissioner Ernst,
Here.
Commissioner Engel, Commissioner Rollins, Commissioner Vogelsang,
Here.
Commissioner Wright. Any changes to the agenda? Nope. Public requests. None from
Nobody.
here. Anybody online?
Nope, nobody.
Nope. Okay, approval of the minutes of the previous board meeting held on March 7th, 2022 at 5:15.
Move to approve.
Second.
Joanne? Commissioner Ernst? Commissioner Engel? Commissioner Rollins? Commissioner Vogelsang?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright? Yes.
Motion passes.
And regular business, first is the district CIP mid-year update. Brianne.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, on page 6 of your agenda packet starts a report that was prepared by staff featuring the CIP projects and where we are for them this current year. You could turn to page 8 to read an update on Ocean Breeze. I think everybody's familiar with where we are with the Miller Lake process, and they were contracted this year. We also completed all that work at the property as far as the cleanup and the demo of the remaining structures. That's all been completed. And then we do have Miller Lake. I was going to give this at a future agenda item. They're going to come April 18th to do an update and presentation on some of the information that they're working on processing now. The Racket Club, we approved the project. Moving on to page 9, Racket Club, we approved the project for adding lighting. Those drawings are 90% complete, so that will be hopefully going out to bid or coming before you soon to go out to bid. And then we have the Patriot Park Tennis and Pickleball project, which is underway, and they're working on information collecting and data to get those designs done. Ocean Strand Park is also underway. We'll have an update for you at our next meeting with some of the fees and things like that that have happened and things that we're doing to offset some of those fees as well. And one of the things that we didn't have in the original plans was the fact that we have the archaeologist has to oversee all the removal of invasives. So we'll have some costs on some of that coming up. And then we have capital improvement projects that the city is managing. And there's an update in here on the Red Reef restrooms, the tower project, which we're all aware of. We also have the pipes and pumping project, which is underway now. They expect that to be done by summer 2022. Some other capital projects this year, the turf infill remediation, the walkways at Patriot. We also have the carousel renovations going, and those sweeps that had to get ordered are ordered and underway. So it does take time for that, and we'll continue to update you once we have that information out. We also committed funds for a Gumbo Limo master plan, which was the air conditioning and roofing repairs out there, the DeHornley maintenance building, the Red Reef Sail Pavilion, and then lifeguard tower replacements were in the budget this year as well. And on page 13, we have some projects to consider in the future, which was the second field house, which has been something that this board has discussed routinely. I know we're focused on getting Ocean Breeze master plan first. There's also the Patriot Park master plan. The Sugar Sand Park Community Center renovations of the old district offices is something to think about for the next few years. And then replacing the field house flooring will be an upcoming project. And then wayfinding and renovations of trails at both Sugar Sand and Patriot is something that we can look at doing in the future. And then the city has the maintenance building at Spanish River Park, which we put in a design cost into a reserve fund this current fiscal year. So it was just an update on where we're at with everything, and I'm happy to answer any questions or talk about any updates that you'd like to see.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any comments or questions, Craig?
Starting with Ocean Strand, Brianne, could you give us a little bit more of an update on the lift station? I know you mentioned that they found a different donor or something.
They did. I don't have any other update beyond that, but they're not going to be asking to put that at Ocean Strand.
Okay. Okay, it just impacts us one way or another. And then the next item was, how about on the consultant for the RFP for a consultant? Is that
For the grant writer?
grant writer?
That's
Yeah.
out. That'll close in April,
April,
at the end of April.
end of April?
Yeah.
Okay. And then just a thought for this group to consider. Over the past week, I had some time to go to Sugar Sand Park, and I was pleasantly surprised by talking to the rollerblade team that's out there, and got their input. And the rollerblade rink is adjacent to the existing field house. It's to the north end there. And what was interesting is, and kudos to the city staff, because they did resurface it. Unfortunately, the vendor who they used put a more of a rougher material, and the city staff recognize it, the rollerbladers recognize it, and so they're going to make a correction to it. They're scheduling time of when they're going to do it. But talking to the folks who are out there, it's a passionate group. Rollerblading is kind of I'd call it a spin-off of ice hockey. There is going to be an ice hockey arena coming in up at the Peninsula Corporate Center. I think that is going to kind of stimulate more interest in activities, but a consideration, instead of having a field house, an additional field house at Sugar Sand, the immediate thing for that roller rink out there is to consider just a roof over it. And that would solve Boca Hoops problems in the rain. And I think it's probably a less costly alternative, and it would be greatly appreciated by the roller skating group out there. But it's basically a full rink with the Boca Hoops all set up there as well, but with a nice type of roof on it. It would be I think a good alternative, and it'd give flexibility. And if it's designed correctly, if you really wanted to enclose it, you can close it at a later date. But it's something that I'd like to see us, we could explore that. And as far as another field house goes, I think an additional field house possibly at Patch Reef would make more sense, because it's just to diversify ourselves a little bit. And that's a longer term plan type look at where it would go. But I think we could solve something pretty easily by working there at Sugar Sand. Any thoughts?
I think the roof is a great idea over the roller rink. But I think one of the other things that we need to do on projects to consider is to prioritize these projects so that we know over the next few years what needs to be, what's got the highest priority, next, and be able to allocate our funds in the right way, so that we don't have everything hitting us all at once, and we can do things so that with attention to our tax rates and to what the public needs. So I think that's something that it doesn't have to be done right this minute, but something that we need to look at in the very near future.
Thank you, Aaron. To Craig's point, if you go up I-95, somewhere along the way between here and Orlando, I remember seeing a covered facility exactly like you're talking about, Craig. It's adaptable to not only rollerblading or hockey, whatever they're playing. Futsal is another sport that they can use it for, and having a covering on it also does something, because during the summer it's pretty hot playing out there in the sun. So I would agree with that. And I don't think I've met any sports groups that wasn't very enthusiastic about their sport, whether it's pickleball or whatever. I mean, they all seem to be able to express themselves with enthusiasm when we're talking about facilities. The question I have, I might, Madam Chair, is Brian, when did you last do this update on our CIP projects?
Last time I did this report was actually 2019, pre-pandemic.
2019.
Yes.
Just a passing comment, there's fewer of our projects that have been underway, and most of the projects that we planned have been completed since that time. And there's new projects on here.
So the last report had this facility. It had the Patriot Park turf fields in it. Those were all done.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that I'd just like to make a quick analysis and comparison, is that, give us a project and we're going to get it done. We got the pump and piping that's been going on since I was 14 years old. And the tower itself, has been a huge disappointment, that, it still isn't done after all of these. It's not ADA. It doesn't have to be ADA too. It does have to be ADA. And in the interim, we were shipping poles from Texas to here to build it. So commissioners, compliments to the crew, to you guys and to staff for staying on top of our projects and getting them done. I think that shows that we can and will do our projects, and with the exception of some earlier projects, mostly on time and under budget.
In regard to the roof over at Sugar Sand, Melissa, would you do me a favor and just check the drainage over there and see what it's like when it rains, to see, make sure that, if they're going to be redoing the surface, the rollerblade surface, to make sure that it drains properly, and so that when they do, if and when we do put a roof on there, it's going to be good for even when they're playing in the rain. I think that'd be a great thing. Just a question about Ocean Strand. What are the options of, and I don't know how far Carol is with all the planning for the plants and everything, to put it out there to the public to dedicate, a tree to a loved one, or to a group or whatever, and make this more of a community thing, so that we could have little plaques. And I don't know what the cost would be. We'd have to run that by Carol. Ooh, hello. Was that you? Just throwing that out there.
Okay, I'm going to try this now. What I was going to say is I can talk to Sam and Jacob about our donation policy and see if we can't develop a program for Ocean Strand, something like that, where people could, it's kind of like at Sugar Sand where they bought the bricks, or something like similar to Ocean Strand. We can look at that and see what our options are.
When do we hear back from Miller Lake for the survey?
Going to attend our April 18th meeting and do a presentation on that. We should have that information before they're processing. They're processing this surveys this week is the week that they're processing all that information. The survey company is going through all of that now. So they'll have that information soon. I just talked to Mike and Ludi, Mike right before this meeting, and Ludi a little bit before that. So.
Yeah, I think the roof is a great idea, even more so than the rain is like the sun. I think they would get more use out of it in the summertime, blocking the sun, because usually when it rains, thunder and lightning usually comes with it, which means they wouldn't be able to be out there anyway, most likely, but I think that would be something that would be great that we could look into for sure. And then the second field house might mesh into the Patriot Park master plan, possibly, you never know. And then we are also going to see what Miller Lake comes back with in terms of Ocean Breeze too. They might end up recommending a field house over there, who knows. But thank you for this. And so any more comments on that? Nope. All right, number 2, budget amendment number 22-01. Yes.
Record. No. So be it. This is resolution number 2022-01. It's a resolution of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District of Palm Beach County, Florida, amending the budget for fiscal year 2021 through 2022 and providing for an effective date, the contents of which are both on the website and in your hard edition of the agenda as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Brian?
Commissioners, just to clarify, we did put a revised budget summary in your folders to take a look at. That's what we post online for the public. This resolution allocates the $2,025,000 amount that was approved at the last meeting we had. It was approved for $2,025,000. It will now be allocated as a line item for the Countess de Horney Maintenance Facility. We also had an additional $1,235,000 carryover after the city's final bill from last year. So Those items were added in to the budget summary, which is in your folders. And that's what this resolution. So we just need approval tonight of this resolution number 2022-01. And we do have Mr. Merv Timberlake here to answer any questions about the budget that you may have.
Questions, or we have a motion?
Proof.
Did I make a sorry, I know you're trying to beat the record for making the shortest meeting. I just had one comment. You know, I'm still not supporting the resolution. Go on record with that. But what I would like to ask, since we've been so benevolent to approve this project, is that the city move those vehicles that are over at Patch Reef and put them somewhere where we have, that'll relieve some of our parking, because if you've been over there, I think they were going to move them behind the Rutherford Center, but they're out there front and center when you come in there. And there's no reason why they have to be taking up parking places. And ladies and gentlemen, if we do the pickleball project over there and get that accomplished, we're going to need the parking that those vehicles are now occupying. And secondly, I would also encourage us to have the staff that's located in the different pavilions at Spanish River Park occupy space in the new maintenance facility, open this other area up to the public. So that's the comments that I would make. Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody? Craig? Oh, go ahead.
Commissioner Engel? Commissioner Rollins? Commissioner Vogelsong?
Yes.
Daydreaming, Madam Chair. Thinking about Craig. Craig actually agreed with me, so I was thinking how wonderful that was. I actually intended to vote no on this amendment. Thank you.
I know what to do to get Bob to vote along with me.
Okay.
Commissioners, on page 18 of your agenda packets is an amendment to the agreement with CSR for the turf infill project at Patch Reef Park. The original bid specs called for 2 payments, which we made the initial installment at our 2 weeks ago at our previous meeting. We're making a second installment now. The schedule was changed slightly, so they wanted to get paid for what they had done, and then there'll be a final payment. So the bid specs called for 2 payments. This is an amendment allowing for that third installment to be paid. And just looking for approval of this amendment found on page 18 in your agenda packets.
I have a- This doesn't increase the cost of the project. It just is separating 3 payments. Just want to make that clear.
And to approve.
Any discussion? Nope. Joanne?
Commissioner Engel? Commissioner Rollins? Commissioner Vogelsong?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright? Motion passes.
A approval of payroll and invoices, Craig.
I'd like to make a motion for approval of payroll and invoices for the amount of $163,542.09.
Ernst? Commissioner Engel? Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsong? Commissioner Wright? Motion passes.
Hey, reports and discussion items. Brianne.
Commissioners, I'm going to try to say this without confusing myself on it. We have had, over the course of the past years, a lot of things have changed with how we manage our projects at our facilities. And so With a lot of the CIP projects at our facilities, the city is now asking us to manage those projects. So things like the roller hockey rink that Commissioner Ernst mentioned, that was done, athletic staff oversaw that. That is something that they are going to address. They're going to do a new surface and have the roller hockey people test it before they complete the entire surface and renovate the entire surface. But one of these projects is the roofing and on all of our facilities. And at Sugar Sand Park and Patch Reef, I mean, here obviously it's a brand new building, so we're fine. But at Sugar Sand and Patch Reef, our buildings are at or getting to be about 30 years old. So it's time to start looking at those roofs and find out if we need to replace them, repair them, things like that. We had set aside $250,000 this year in the budget for Sugar Sand Park repairs on the roof. Now we have a new report from the city that says that entire roof needs to be replaced. And so what we would like to do, instead of moving forward, spending that 250,000, what I'd like to do is have CGA look at the roofs of all of our buildings at Sugar Sand, which is the community center, the field house, the buildings out by the ball fields, the same thing at Patch Reef, because the tennis center is the roof there is very old, and take a look at these roofs and prioritize them so that we can work on repairs or replacements over the next 5 years on a priority basis based on whatever's going to preserve the buildings the longest. I know if we look at, Commissioner Ernst mentioned putting the field house out at Patch Reef instead of the community center there, we may not want to do that roof, but we need to look at some of these roofs and start looking at, Commissioner Ernst also talked to me earlier about some options that they looked at the building where he works. So I think there's ways that we may be able to repair and fix these things, but I think we need to look at it and start, we will need to manage these projects. So we want to start evaluating them now. And just wanted to talk to the board about that, or maybe make it an agenda item in the future so we can discuss it. But wanted to just put that out there that we want to look at prioritizing the roof repairs for both Sugar Sand and Patch Reef, and just get a feel for if we want to use the money that we set aside this year to ask CGA to do a list, or if we wanted to go out for an RFP on that, or if we want to do more research and come back at a later date with all of it. But we will need to address all these roofs at some point. Yes.
CGA have a structural engineer who does this.
They subcontract for all the roofing inspections and stuff that they do.
Suggest that you explore all options, including CGA. But we definitely need to prioritize, the roofs that fits with Melissa's maintenance program. We need a better idea of where we're going to spend the money over the next, whether it's this year, next year, down the road. But I think part of it also is working with a roofer who will tell you too. So multiple roofers, right? So it's a process. I think good luck, get started, and we need to kind of think it through a little bit. Those are big roofs.
Okay, so we'll start looking at that. Did anybody else want to talk about it, or?
No, I was just gonna say it's a good thing to have a preventative maintenance plan anyway for these, because I think we probably could stretch them out a little more. And then if we do end up building a field house, we won't run a replace roof anyway. So, but I think it's a good idea for sure.
The only other thing I had were future agenda items. We're going to talk about at the next meeting. I'd like to talk about Gumbo Limbo. This isn't an access to the boardwalk. It was part of the tower project. We may want to break that out. I just want to bring it up at the next meeting and talk about it and have the city present that part. We'll have an Ocean Strand update, the salary evaluations that Commissioner Ernst asked to put on the agenda. And then meeting after that, April 18th, an update on Boca Chica master plan with no leg. And that is the conclusion of my report.
Council?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening again. Just to supplement the conversation from Brienne, we did meet this past week to talk about the benchmarking for salaries and salary structuring. The assignment was given to us to work with Brienne to do so, and we're going to do that as soon as we possibly can. But we have to benchmark with comparable positions, comparable locations, comparable things that make sense in the context of being able to do an actual legitimate measurable comparison. That can be a city, it may be a special district, much like our own, if there are any that compare with us, and that we're the best in the state. And that, I mean that sincerely, and there may be difficulties to find districts that otherwise qualify. But we will do the benchmarking that we discussed, you all discussed at the last meeting, and hopefully bring you back something through Brienne. but ultimately work on the assignment together, which I think is a key factor. At the last meeting, we talked about the legislative session, just a couple of observations that may be helpful. We are, as a law firm, do a periodic report during the course of the session. There's nothing that jumped off the page this session like there was last year that would otherwise affect the legal rights of special districts, but there were a couple of bills that did jump off the page that may have some fiscal impact to the district. And I don't know what MERS looked at it, but for example, HJR number 1 is an additional $50,000 tax exemption that's being provided for. It'll be on the ballot. We proceed in November, which essentially is an additional homestead exemption for what they call specified critical public service workforce, including such folks as classroom teachers, law enforcement officers, correctional officers, firefighters, child welfare service professionals, active duty members of the United States Armed Forces, and members of the Florida National Guard. They would otherwise, if the amendment passes in November, will be entitled to an additional tax exemption, which may have a fiscal impact to the city of Boca Raton and to the district as an adjunct special district as well. That's HJR number 1. It was passed by the legislature. It is on the governor's desk for execution. We believe it has actually the viability of being signed or let become law without a signature. We don't believe that's going to be the case. The second bill that we noticed that may have some bearing is the fact that under Florida law, I don't know that you ever had a shade meeting with this organization, maybe you have before us, which is a private session with your lawyer to talk about litigation that's pending. The good news is we don't have litigation pending that affects us in an adverse way. There's been no need to actually have a shade meeting, but under state law, you are allowed under Chapter 286 to have a private session with your lawyers and your manager and any other affected parties that would be basically yourselves to talk about litigation. That's not what this is. That's one exemption. If you had collective bargaining agreements with employees, which you don't have, that's also an opportunity to have a closed door session with collective bargaining under Chapter 447. There's also a statute in Florida governing security of public buildings. So for example, where you have your buildings located, there's an ability to have a closed door session with staff without indicating where the switches are to where the power system is, for example, so as to make sure that cyber criminals don't find their way into your property. But in this session of the legislature, both houses passed the bill, House Bill 7057. 7057 essentially provides another carve out under the Constitution and under state statute, which actually allows this district, as any other agency, the following. It basically suggests that it provides an exemption from public records requirements for certain information related to cybersecurity or ransomware incident held by local government, state agency, which we would qualify as, or sheriff, authorizes disclosure of confidential and exempt information under certain circumstances, provides exemption from public meetings requirements for portions of meetings that would reveal certain information related to cybersecurity or ransomware incident held by local government, state agency, or sheriff, etc. Why do I bring it up? Well, because what's happening these days is, although we're not susceptible to having that happen, we're not immune from it in the context of having our system hacked by cyber criminals. This statute, which we assume will be signed by the governor, essentially provides another venue where, in the event that you would seek to have a private meeting with your staff, not in the public eye, in this room, but not a matter of public record or confidential in the context of information, so that you can in fact protect the security of your systems, which are protected under the statute. That does allow for that in the event that there's a need to have that occur. I will just give you an example that in one of our cities in Broward County, they recently had a ransomware attack in the city. It was severe. The cyber criminals were actually able to get into the system. They were able to shut down much of the email system, including the financial system of the city. The city couldn't write any checks, just FYI. And I learned through that process, they had to hire outside lawyers to assist who specialize in this area of criminal behavior and also in fixing systems. Typically, the criminals don't want to be paid in your dollars. They want to be paid in cryptocurrency, which creates another set of events, because under federal law, you can't pay ransom, even in a cybersecurity situation, to folks that are terrorists. So I don't know how you know who the terrorists are or not, but in the event that there's any action or aspect of invading the province of our system, the statute now gives us an opportunity to have your director and your lawyer and staff, others if you so choose, to actually do some things to basically protect against those activities, which is not the case until this bill was approved. There was a couple other bills that don't really have any adverse relevance to this agency. Last year, there were several that were somewhat concerning to all of us, but didn't pass. Something else I learned, I was at a joint session of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council and the South Florida Regional Planning Council on Friday in West Palm Beach, and I learned from retired Senator Pruitt that this session there were over 3,000 bills actually filed. 3,035 bills were filed. Only 235 of the 3,000 bills actually passed legislature. So when we track bills at the beginning and the middle of a session, you never know what you're going to get. But it's a very small number of bills get passed. And those are general laws, not special bills that otherwise pertain to our district, but they do apply to our district if they apply to the district. So it's worth noting that that's a lot of bills during a 60-day session. And as you know, legislators begin the process of submitting bills directly after the session end for next year. And they begin that process quite early, as a matter of fact. So we do pay attention to what's out there, what does get filed, and to the extent I can answer any questions, I'm happy to try and look forward to the opportunity. But thank you for listening very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Any questions or anything on that? Nope. Steve?
That I was at the beach this weekend, and the lifeguard towers are at the point where graffiti artists are coming out there at it, and they're doing a good job at it, but the towers look pretty ratty. So I think they're on the schedule to be updated, but they really should press forward with that.
Art in the park, Greg? I had a phone call over the weekend from one of our favorite fans, Howard Chaffee, who is recovering, as you know, from some very serious illness. And he had the opportunity to drive through Patriot Park and had not been in that park before. So he was significantly impressed with the Rutherford Center and the playground where the kids were playing. And, he had a real feel-good feeling about the park, and wanted to pass along his compliments for something that was very well done. I just make one comment about the legislature session. They really disappointed the community, because when they didn't pass anything regarding insurance reform that would have helped reduce future premiums on your homeowners and commercial property. And then the other thing that surprised me was they didn't pass anything regarding condominium inspections and the required. I mean, those two issues were certainly a lot more important than some of the ones that I heard Sam read off. And I'm hoping that next year they've already got started on this. I actually went up there to talk to our local delegation about these issues, and it was discussion about insurance was very divided among the representatives, both the House and the Senate. And but it was disappointing that we're still going to be paying even higher premiums next year when your renewals come out, because the matter hasn't gotten any better. And that's all I've got to say, except that we had beautiful weather in town Sunday, and like Craig, I hope everybody got out and enjoyed it.
Lucy?
Good. Thank you very much.
So am I. I am all good.
Adjourn.
Joanne?
Commissioner Infill? Commissioner Rollins? Commissioner Vogelsong?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright?
Congratulations. Well done, Madam Chair.